Hello friends, how are you all? Hope you are doing great at various aspects of your lives. Reading Vish Dhamija's books proves to be an interesting experience for us, always. Not only because thrillers, mysteries, detective work and police procedural are what we love to explore in addition to mythology, fantasy fiction, satire, humor and other stuff, but also the way he weaves the elements together amazes us. I will put in the links to some of his books we have reviewed so far in the description below. Fortunately, we also got a chance to have an author interview with him, and I will share a quick link to that as well in the description below. Since we have read Bindi Bazaar, a dark thriller, we were curious to meet the female protagonist, DCP Rita Ferreira, once again. Knowing that Doosra is the second book featuring her, it was in our list. A while ago, I got a chance to read it and I found it a really interesting thriller. Being responsible for making the first impression of the book it is associated with, the cover page is often responsible to lure a casual browser to pick the specific book from the compendium and probably look for its blurb and other details. Of course, if the browser finds it interesting, he can be converted into a potential buyer or reader. The role of the first impression made by the cover page, however, cannot be ignored. Let us take a look at the cover page of Doosra. However, the earlier version of the book had a different cover page. The cover page of the latest version of this book is quite interesting. I have integrated it in the design of this podcast cover so you can easily look at that. Based on the technology available, the designer has put in his sincere efforts, and I find that he has succeeded in making the cover page quite attractive. The cover designer Saurabh Garge has done a nice job according to me, and if you are a fan of reading interesting international thrillers falling in the same genre, you might have heard about fictional author Richard Castle's Nikki hit series, and it is quite obvious that you can draw parallel between Nikki hit series books covers and the cover page of this book Doosra. However, I am not trying to tell that this cover page is inspired by that series or its cover pages, but this is like say kind of similarities we can find in both of them. And if this trail of similarities keep increasing in terms of story and various elements of the story, it would be definitely a fantastic combination we are looking forward to. Let us take a bird's eye view of the book plot. The story starts in Antwerp on 2nd April. Ron Jogani, a wealthy diamond merchant from India, visits Antwerp. Of course, it was not his first visit, though it is destined to be his last one. He is good at diamond trading and more importantly at judging them. As mentioned in the book, his biggest skill was his knowledge of precious stones, especially diamonds. Even with a naked eye, he could price a diamond and it wouldn't be any more than 5% away from the real value. Being a global diamond hub, his visit to Antwerp is quite obvious. He doesn't share his full itinerary with others just for the precautions. He even don't take taxi to his hotel. He usually drops it at a couple of streets ahead, mostly near other hotel. Then he walks into his hotel from there, creating a deceiving effect. This way, in case if anyone is following him, could lose the trail. He know that the small gemstones he used to deal in and thus sometimes carry with him also worth a lot. And anyone who wanted to become a quick rich guy may have plans to steal or loot them from him. So he does the basic. Somehow, after his deal, when he was having a leisure time in his hotel, he was called from the reception. He was reluctant, but ultimately visits the reception to find that no one has called him from there. He sensed something is wrong. He rushed to his room to see his valuables are about to be stolen, and try to stop them, he got murdered there. It was a high-profile case, and the police does their work with all sincerity, but was unable to catch the culprit. Even the valuables are lost. As Mr. Jogani was from India and the possible killer was also coming back to India, the investigation has to be spread there as well, specifically in Mumbai. Eventually, DCP Rita Ferreira and her team was put on this high-profile case. Also, the reputation of Indian investigation agencies are under the radar because it is an international case, so the police must find the killer. Even if the suspect is in Mumbai, is it possible to catch him? Mumbai is a vast city and someone can easily dissolve into the crowd and hidden at a place where no one could look for him or her. How the story moves ahead. What challenges DCP Rita Ferreira and her team faces, and how the case is solved or remain unsolved is better to explore by reading the book rather than talking about. Over the course of the story, you meet DCP Rita Ferreira, Ron Jogani, Vinay Joshi, the Joint CP, Ash Mittal or Ashwin Mittal, Kuldeep, Shishir Singh, Senior Inspector Vikram Patil, Jatin, Senior Inspector Rajesh Nene, Commissioner Sanjay Saxena, Hani Singh, Mrs. Lucky Singh, Kitty Varghese, Mr. Joginder Raja, Anita Jogani, Veer Singh, Sheila, Kuldeep, and others. Let me start the review by saying this book is a fantastic thriller. The author came in with an interesting title, Doosra, the other one. Doosra can be translated as the second one also, and this book is the second in DCP Rita series. The author uses it in story in an interesting way and refers to this famous term in the context of cricket. Let me share author's own words about this book. Doosra, aka googly, is a term used in the game of cricket. It is a kind of bowling delivery that promises to go one way after the bounce, but goes the other. The author shares his views about how the idea of this book was conceived. The idea of a diamond heist gone wrong storyline came to me when I finished writing Bhendi Bazaar, but I waited to see how the readers reacted to the character of DCP Rita Ferreira. As the initial positive response to the book and Rita Ferreira started trickling in, I was convinced she would be the protagonist again, and Doosra was born. As said earlier, for a seasoned reader, it would be easy to draw parallel between the famous Nikki Hit book series and Rita Ferreira series. Of course, some similarities are there in all police procedural or detective fiction, and it doesn't mean that one inspired the other. Here the comparison is done just to show the international quality of this book. One thing I found prominent in all Vish Dhamija's books is the inclusion of references to historical or mythological or cultural references about the place he talked about or referred to in the book. This book is no exception. I am delighted to read the following references. Benalim has been part of Goa lore for generations. Parshuram, the sixth avatar of Vishnu, had shot an arrow from somewhere above in the Western Ghats, and that arrow descended upon what came to be known as Banavalli, the village of Arrow. The Portuguese rechristened it to Benalim. Mumbai Police HQ is in vicinity of historical landmark called Crawford Market. The Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan, most noted for Taj Mahal, had a court jeweler of Gujarati descent Shantidas Zaveri. Shantidas Zaveri exclusively catered to the royal lineup of queens the emperor had. But generations down the line and anglicized over the years, Zaveri brothers was still one of the biggest names in diamonds in the country. The author also refers to the famous fictional detective Hercule Poirot, reporter Tintin, and other characters to make the reading experience even more joyous. His love for films, cricket, and his interest in general knowledge is also visible in this book. Here are some quotes from the book in the same regards. Gentle and balding. He could easily play Hergis Professor Calculus in the next Tintin film. The only apparent difference was that Joshi was a lot taller than his caricatured twin. The Belgian detective who came to Mumbai on Monday morning, Victor Desmet, was anything but the legendary Hercule Poirot, though he had the grit and the accentuated gait of the fabled character. Remove Poirot's moustaches and add a head full of straight blonde hair parted on the side, and that was Victor. Shishir Singh was definitely an alias. One didn't need a Sherlock to tell her that, but that was logic, not evidence. Omega is one of the most respected watch brands in the world. It was on the wrist of Mr. Armstrong when he took the giant leap for all of us mankind. The Australians call it trifecta, 3 victories in 3. Hat trick is how any cricketer would have termed it. The author is good at wordplays. The way he introduces us to places and situations by some interesting comparisons is worth admiring. For example, arrogant rain was still sheeting down like Arjuna's arrows and showed no intention of stopping. Its continuous thundering drops on the windshield sounded like a rap singer on steroids. The wipers struggled to keep it clear. It was 6. The sun had still not finished its shift, and the sky was still bright. Lokhandwala in Andheri West looked like an adopted child of Bandra. The grandness was perceptible. But when the bureaucratic machinery really decided to do something, she knew it got done much faster than it took Tendulkar to score a century. Additionally, he was a charmer in person when it came to words that mattered. He could charm the feathers of a peacock in the mating season. The book brings some matters of fact in straightforward manner. For example, the following line about India's security systems when letting the passengers into the flight is well balanced. Neither it tries to show a bravado here, nor anything fancy or superlative terms are used. Just a plain matter of fact. Such simplicity often works in favor of the book, as there had never been any security lapse on any flight that had taken off from India in over 50 years. It is rare to see any fitness regime or exercise routine being followed by the lead characters, especially from the law enforcement team is mentioned in the books. Of course, exceptions are there, so finding the following lines in this book makes your day. She decided to do yoga. She was blessed with a great metabolism, but being slim did not necessarily mean being fit. She exercised for agility, for strength, for flexibility, for stamina, for body synergy. And it is not only for the protagonists. The skills that the people on the wrong side of the law possess are also mentioned. Also, the fact that during the policing work, the protectors of law had to follow the rule, but the rule breakers don't have to follow any such code of conduct is mentioned in the book. There is nothing that bothers bureaucracy like a miscarried procedure. Do anything, but don't break the rules and procedures, irrespective of how ridiculous or obsolete they are. Catching a criminal is like one side playing the game with ever-changing rules. The police have to adhere to the guidelines. The criminal can change course anytime. Name, identity, MO, anything. And it goes on. The following lines about the policing work, their relations with media, how system works, criminals' ability to smell policemen in disguise, etc. are really interesting. A policeman was, above all, a policeman. The uniform was for the amateurs to identify the police. The professionals didn't need that. They would be familiar with people like Nene from a mile. Truth is that media and police force are two alpha males that never got along. They, at the best, politely tolerate each other. And that is how it should be. One's negatives highlighted and checked by the other. Don't risk writing up the intelligence of the perpetrators. They are clever, they are smart, and they think on their feet. They have the ability to optimize their plans as they go along with the circumstances change. Contrary to what most people think, the police didn't merely look for answers. The foremost search was always for the correct questions. Correct questions get correct answers. Answers to non-existent questions are useless. Telling someone was simple. Telling someone without being caught out needed a bit of caution. Police work was like mathematics. You might know the answer to the question, but you needed to be able to walk the journey between the question and answer. There were missing pieces, but it was always the missing pieces that made puzzles. She recognized that. Years of police training and experience had taught her that answers were never served on a platter, least of all in a homicide investigation. No technology is ever infallible. It is common misbelief that all high-tech gadgets are at the bequest of those who can afford them and deploy them when, in fact, they were at the mercy of those who can hack them. Though it can chase down anything that moves, surveillance couldn't be carried out in a Ferrari. You needed a camel in the desert, not a cheetah. You want anonymity and not a cheering side that begged a double take. If you are a fan of one-liners, this book has a plenty. This book has a plenty of them. They covers a wide spectrum of inspiration, information, motivation, philosophy, psychology, and more. Remember, an illusion can only work till something eludes you. There was, and always would be, without exception, an invisible line between the wealthy and those who aspired to be. If you really want something, you should go that extra mile to get it. Deception is a bonus in investigation. Haste makes waste. Cliché, but factual. No conclusion was better than a false one. Because you couldn't find something, it didn't mean it wasn't there. You couldn't know how the dice would fall unless you threw the dice. By definition, only people whom you love or have loved can let you down. Each day on the wrong track is also a day away from the right track. Anyone can win when they have aces. The art is in winning when you are dealt a lousy hand. Beauty can be an opinion steered by preconceived notion or your upbringing. Sensuality was never absolute. All relationships are mutable by nature. If someone wanted to learn how to shrink cash, this was a crash course. Surveillance is a game played with gold chips of patience. Sometimes, to define a character or some attributes of him or her, you may not need to address them directly. The book has some lines adding to the persona of respective characters in the book in the same regards. Kitty Varghese was an iPhone. There wasn't any dearth of admirers. Leonard Aron, the tall, slim, pointed-nosed, silver-haired, aging diamond dealer, who had been around since after the war, solely owned Aron diamonds. She could never trust a firearm she hadn't fired. Impatience is a virtue in investigation. It establishes confidence that someone else was thinking about the case too. Photograph would help in identification, but you have got to find the person first to identify him. It was past dusk when Rita left the office. Even the shadows were long gone. The night was black, the breeze cool. Stars shone, and the night sky over the Arabian Sea was clear, but the sea was anything but quiet. She had an eidetic memory. Nothing escaped her mind. Image, sound, names, scent. She was born to be a detective. The author talks about various human attributes, elaborating his understanding of psyche. Here are some such lines. After all, betrayal wasn't a new word added to the English dictionary. It had been there since the 13th century. Betrayal had been a part of human history since the Advent, wasn't it? Next, she slid the red box file towards her. It was indeed bulky. But unlike body weight, in a murder investigation, it was better to have more than not enough. Sadly, in an investigation, she knew questions and answers didn't come in a sequence. Sometimes you got some answers first that you had no use of. Later came in the questions that bridged the gap. Life is no more than a profit and loss statement, and profit and losses are always as on a day, a point in time. Since the actual profit or loss can only be determined when the enterprise closes, so is with life. So you are a winner till you actually lose. Whatever class of travel you picked in India, the car journey from airport to the final destination ultimately coated you with a fine layer of green, even if it is an air-conditioned car with windows closed. As for life, so for love. You couldn't let your failures cling to you, accept defeat or loss, and then, breaking the old and unavailing ties, tightly shut the door on the past. I like the dark humor and punches in the following lines. Ashwin Mittal originally, but Microsoft Word forced him to change his name rather than correct the spelling each time. A man so large it would appear that he had been put into the car and then inflated to fill up the interior. If I had to choose only one segment to quote from the book, I would settle for, in the lust for more people make sure they lose everything they have already got. That is how devil plays. He always blinds you and suspends you in some fifth dimension where everything sounds like a lament. All these quotes must have given you a fair idea about the kind of writing the book possesses. So you can determine whether it meets with your likes when it comes to reading. I really like the way the layers of characters are explored. The track of speedy bike drivers may have found irrelevant in the beginning, but it also has a potential link. Despite being the protagonist, Rita is not perfect. She also has her vulnerabilities. In fact, she came back, or rather say called by, from a sabbatical. She has her own demons to fight with. She has her own demons to fight with. She also needs a shoulder to support. She also needs ears to hear her. And that makes her character more believable. Ash Mittal's character has shades of mystery, and you may start thinking that he is not the guy to trust. That makes you view another track of the story in your mind. The characters of CP and Joint CP, Vikram, Jatin and other shows different phases of law enforcement system. They all have their own ways to do the good work. Their abilities are different and they are doing their bits. The descriptions of scenes, the roads, traffic, the way the locality is explored are all up to the mark. Even the characters of Shishir Singh, Kitty, the old lady, all have their significance. The book has a tapestry of characters, adding to the shades of suspense. In terms of shortcomings, I found only one. The book is meant for mature readers. Some explicit scenes are meant for the adult eyes only. Well, usually such murder mysteries are not for unmatured minds anyway. In summary, it is a complete entertainer. If you love police procedural, you will enjoy reading it for sure. ThinkerViews rating would be around 8 stars out of 10.
So, have you already read the book? Are you planning to read it? What do you think about this book review? Do you find it helpful in deciding whether to go for the book or not? Please do share your genuine remarks via comments below. If you have enjoyed listening to the review, please hit the like button and do not forget to share it with your friends and other fellows whom you think such reviews interest more. Till we meet with our next podcast, bye bye, take care, namaskar.